The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it.
People would invite me to parties, and I'd say, "What are you talking about? We've got a revolution, that has to take place."
Guys, huh?
And now, some fresh pickings from the political grapevine. The University of Notre Dame is not the only Catholic institution raising eyebrows when it comes to President Obama. Officials at Georgetown University covered a monogram symbolizing the name of Jesus because it was inscribed on the stage where the president spoke Tuesday. The White House asked for all symbols to be covered at the lecture hall. A university spokeswoman tells Cybercast News, quote, "The White House wanted a simple backdrop consistent with what they've done for other policy speeches." The monogram, IHS, which comes from the Greek for Jesus, was covered with a triangle of black painted plywood. Catholic League President Bill Donohue says, quote, "The cowardice of Georgetown to stand fast on principle tells us more than we need to know. But the bigger story is the audacity of the Obama administration to ask a religious school to neuter itself before the president speaks there." But the White House spokesman tells Fox, quote, "Decisions made about the backdrop for the speech were made to have a consistent background of American flags, which is standard for many presidential events. Any suggestions to the folks?"
I want to
Christian God is the one and only true living God, the creator of heaven and the universe. Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Jesus Christ is the Son of God.
I agree.
You are anti-Christ because you said,
Assalamu alaikum.
Many other Americans have Muslims in their families or have lived in a Muslim majority country. I know because I am one of them.
But my father came from a Kenyan family that includes generations of Muslims. As a boy, I spent several years in Indonesia and heard the call of the azan at the break of dawn. I have known Islam on 3 continents before coming to the region where it was first revealed. That experience guides my conviction.
You are absolutely right that John McCain has not talked about my Muslim faith.
As the Holy Quran tells us, the Holy Quran teaches that, the Holy Quran tells us, and the Holy Quran also says,
We will convey our deep appreciation for the Islamic faith, which has done so much over the centuries to shape the world.
I would like to speak directly to the people and leaders of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Your great and celebrated culture. Over many centuries, your art, your music, literature, and innovation have made the world a better and more beautiful place. We know that you are a great civilization, and your accomplishments have earned the respect of the United States and the world.
You know that if you play selected portions of Barack Obama's speeches backwards, you can hear the real truth about him, which is, of course, that he has pledged himself to Satan. In his acceptance speech when he won the presidential nomination, Obama repeated a phrase twice so as to be heard over the cheering.
I accept your nomination for presidency of the United States. Let me express.
Okay, hold it right there. This is the part where he pledges himself to Satan. If you play back that line, let me express, if you play it backwards, oh, it's just too dramatic, it's too dramatic. You have to hear it yourself. You will be shocked, I say.
Let me express.
Did you know, for example, that yes, we can is really just backwards speak for thank you, Satan?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan. Thank you, Satan.
I have a book here today that's called The Rules for Radicals, and it was written by a man named Saul Alinsky. Most people, no matter how they feel about God or what religion they subscribe to, they are wise enough not to praise Satan. They may not want to give Jesus the glory, and then the things that they do in their lives may be giving Satan praise. But I've never in all of my years of ministry and the years that I've lived on this planet, I've never heard anybody praise Satan until just recently. He's a person who has written prolifically about how to take power from the haves and deliver it to those that have not. He is prolific in that. And I'm not here to promote his book, but I think it'll be a good thing if you'll read it. And in every other page, you'll see the word change at least 15 times per page. So what we heard in the recent election was not someone's fresh ideas, but they were rehashed ideas of this Saul Alinsky, that Barack Hussein Obama, that his mentor was Saul Alinsky, and that his community organizing, strategizing, and bringing people together in low-income neighborhoods and organizing them for political power and strength. You've also heard that Mr. Obama stated that he was a community organizer, and that is the one claim to fame that he has. And that he, of course, being a community organizer, wanted to bring change here to America. That he wanted to bring change here to America and thusly to the world. Now I'm going to read to you the very first page of this book of Rules for Radicals. This man who is the mentor, who is the God of Barack Hussein Obama, and he will acknowledge such. He has written in the very first page, he's quoted several people. One is Rabbi Hillel, where Rabbi Hillel said, where there are no men, be thou a man. Y'all stand for this, please. He also has quoted Thomas Paine, where it says, let them call me rebel and welcome. I feel no concern from it, but I should suffer the misery of devils were I to make a whore of my soul. And this is from the great statesman Thomas Paine. Saul Alinsky is quoting him, or at least demonstrating this quote here in the very opening pages of his book of Rules for Radicals. But then he writes these words as well. He says, lest we forget at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement to the very first radical from whom all our legends, mythology, and history, and who is to know where mythology leaves off and history begins, or which is which. The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom was Lucifer, and it signed Saul Alinsky. Now he goes on in this book to praise Satan. He says Satan was the first and the most effective radical, and we ought to take our example of stealing kingdoms from Lucifer. That's what this man has written. You want the book? Here it is. Go buy it. Here it is. And this is Barack Hussein Obama's Bible. He worships this man. Now Saul Alinsky worships Satan. He says we ought to acknowledge him, and that we ought to acknowledge the fact that he was the first radical who won his own kingdom. You go and do likewise. And I want to get this message out to every ear that will hear it. There is a man that has lived among us, that has written in a book 700 pages praising Lucifer. And notice he doesn't call him Satan. Satan is his fallen name. That's what we call it when we want to damn him. But this Saul Alinsky still calls him Lucifer and talks about the power that he's been able to garner. And he does have this kingdom. Oh yeah, this is his kingdom. Don't get bent out of shape. Even Jesus said, this world is not my kingdom. Whereso I fight for, this belongs to Satan. And when Satan offered it to Jesus, he said, if you'll just bow down and worship me. You see all these kingdoms, you see the Taj Mahal, you see those beautiful buildings over there in Moscow designed by those great architects. You won't die. You see all the marching armies of Germany and of Russia and of China. You want to be the commander-in-chief of all of those? Just bow down and serve me, and I'll give it to you. And Jesus refused it, and so have I. But we need to understand that this man has written, and I can't say it emphatically enough, that there's a man that is foolish enough to praise Satan, and then there's a man foolish enough to praise the man that praised Satan. And there are people foolish enough to follow the man that praised Satan. What is happening in our world today? What is happening? What is happening?
Well, there have been extraordinary scenes in Berlin tonight as thousands of people gathered to hear Barack Obama deliver key foreign policy speech on his current European tour. The Democratic presidential hopeful laid out his vision for America's place in a new world order, saying he was speaking as a proud citizen of the United States and a fellow citizen of the world.
But America has not succeeded by stepping out of the currents of cooperation. We have succeeded by steering those currents in the direction of liberty and justice. So nations thrive by meeting their responsibilities and face consequences when they don't. So we have to shape an international order that can meet the challenges of our generation. We will be steadfast in strengthening those old alliances that have served us so well.
300 foreign policy advisors who work and slave every day to make sure that Obama doesn't make any gaffes apparently weren't on the job again. And it is totally gaff-tastic. They picked the victory column, clueless about the fact that this victory column is tied to the Nazi past and is not any kind of symbol of multiculturalism and can't we all get along globalism, but in fact is an offensive symbol to so many Germans of the militaristic past of that country.
Obama's UN debut created a stir even in a room packed with heads of state and government. And for a couple of hours, you could say Mr. Obama was president of the world.
Turning to the peace process, the president called for a dose of reality. Using the term Palestine, he said the U.S. does not accept the legitimacy of Israeli settlements and that from violent extremism to Iran, both sides must acknowledge the right of the other to exist. Arab-Israeli conflict.
But if we see this conflict only from one side or the other, then we will be blind to the truth. The only resolution is for the aspirations of both sides to be met through two states where Israelis and Palestinians each live in peace and security. What kind of future is Russia going to have? What kind of future are Russia and America going to have together? What world order will replace the Cold War? In 2009, a great power does not show strength by dominating or demonizing other countries. The days when empires could treat sovereign states as pieces on a chessboard are over. As I said in Cairo, given our independence, any world order given our interdependence, any world order that tries to elevate one nation or one group of people over another will inevitably fail. The pursuit of power is no longer a zero-sum game. Now we must see that the period of transition which you have lived through ushers in a new era in which nations live in peace and people realize their aspirations for dignity, security, and a better life for their children. And international law will give way to the law of the jungle, and that benefits no one.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Obama met with the Egyptian leader before the speech. During his stay, he also toured a mosque with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and he planned to visit the pyramids, a symbol of Egypt's long history at the heart of the Arab world.
All right, we're just getting some brand new tape in. Here was the president visiting the pyramids in Egypt, and there you're seeing some of the shots. He saw the Sphinx as well, and we know that there was a rather funny moment here as they were walking in. There was a moment when the president saw a hieroglyph which apparently looked something like him.
Given the increasing diversity of America's populations, the dangers of sectarianism are greater than ever. Whatever we once were, we are no longer a Christian nation.
The president-elect is coming into office at a moment when there are upheavals in many parts of the world simultaneously. You have India, Pakistan, you have the jihadist movement. So he can't really say that it's one problem, that it's the most important one. But he can give a new impetus to American foreign policy, partly because the reception of him is so extraordinary around the world. I think his task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't such a crisis.
Are you confident about the people President-elect Obama has chosen to surround him? Because he does not have a great deal of experience.
No, he has appointed an extraordinarily able group of people in both the international and financial field.
Mr. Secretary, we thank you very much for your time.
Anton Chaikin. I'm a historian and the history editor for Executive Intelligence Review. President Obama has put in place a reform apparatus reviving the euthanasia of Hitler Germany in 1939 that began the genocide there. The apparatus here is to deny medical care to elderly, chronically ill and poor people, and thus save, as the president says, $2 to $3 trillion by taking lives considered not worthy to be lived, as the Nazi doctors said. Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel and other avowed cost-cutters on this panel also lead a propaganda movement for euthanasia headquartered at the Hastings Center, of which Dr. Emanuel is a fellow. They shape public opinion and the medical profession to accept a death culture such as the Washington state law passed in November to let physicians help kill patients whose medical care is now rapidly being withdrawn in the universal health disaster. Dr. Emanuel's movement for bioethics and euthanasia and this council's purpose directly continue the eugenics movement that organized Hitler's killing of patients and then other costly and supposedly unworthy people. Dr. Emanuel wrote last October 12th that a crisis, war, and financial collapse would get the frightened public to accept the program. Hitler told Dr. Brandt in 1935 that the euthanasia program would have to wait until the war began to get the public to go along. Dr. Emanuel wrote last year that the Hippocratic Oath should be jumped. Doctors should no longer just serve the needs of the patient. Hoche and Binding, the German eugenicists, exactly said the same thing to start the killing. You on the council are drawing up the procedures list to be used to deny care, which will kill millions if it goes ahead in the present world crash. You think, perhaps, the backing of powerful men, financiers, will shield you from accountability, but you are now in the spotlight. Disband this council and reverse the whole course of this Nazi revival now.
We are no longer a Christian nation.
We do not consider ourselves a Christian nation. The United States has been enriched by Muslim Americans. Since our founding, American Muslims have enriched the United States. Islam has always been a part of America's story. There is a mosque in every state in our union, and over 1,200 mosques within our borders.
One of the points I want to make is that if you actually took the number of Muslims Americans, we'd be one of the largest Muslim countries in the world.
Let there be no doubt, Islam is a part of America.
He did bow to the Muslim king, while he did not do it to the British Queen of England. And by bowing, he showed the world that I am subservient. I do bow down to you as a Muslim king, something no other president has done with Saudi Arabia. The Saudi king is his peer. He is not his subordinate in order to bow for him. And this is exactly what Obama did. Usually it is out of respect that someone would nod his head when bowing to royalty, and the ladies will give curtsy. But Obama went beyond what is required as a head of state and bowed to the Saudi king, and that's unacceptable.
All right,
اللي باش ما يطلع اصلا 55 years and this is a common thought shared by all the
Let me speak as clearly and as plainly as I can. America is not and never will be at war with Islam.
Which passages of Scripture should guide our public policy? Should we go with Leviticus, which suggests slavery is okay? Or we could go with Deuteronomy, which suggests stoning your child if he strays from the faith? Or should we just stick to the Sermon on the Mount, a passage that is so radical that it's doubtful that our own Defense Department would survive its application? Folks haven't been reading the Bible.
On an executive order that the White House was hoping that you would never learn about. Now, the president signed the National Defense Resources Preparedness Executive Order late Friday afternoon, and since that time, now the measure has been virtually ignored by the mainstream media. Now, the order essentially gives the president of the United States absolute power over any and all American resources during both times of peace and national crisis. Now, this includes, but is not limited to, food and livestock, water, plants, energy, health resources, transportation, and construction materials, and gives the government the ability to, quote, control the general distribution of any material, including applicable services, in the civilian market.
He has pledged himself to Satan.
Now, not everybody's laughing about this executive order. In fact, some have suggested this would give the President of the United States the authority to declare basically martial law during times of peace. And to be sure, this is simply the latest string of actions taken by the administration that ignore the basic principles of our Constitution.
We don't even understand freedom anymore. We are a country that is headed towards socialism, totalitarianism, beyond your wildest imagination. I have to tell you, I'm doing a story tonight that I wanted to debunk these FEMA camps. I'm tired of hearing. You know about them? Sure. I'm tired of hearing them. I wanted to debunk them. Well, we've now for several days done research on them. I can't debunk them. And we're going to carry the story tonight.
I don't know anything about him. So.
It is our government. If you trust our government, it's fine. If you have any kind of fear that we might be headed towards a totalitarian state, look out, buckle up. There's something going on in our country that is ain't good. Name the monster in the dark and have no fear. There are more of us than there are of them. We just have to be honest and open about it. Okay, so they're not FEMA trailers, FEMA prisons, FEMA camps. These are actual prisons that were built under the Bush administration, and they were built specifically for a couple of reasons. One was for a massive influx of illegal immigrants that we would have to jail. Now they're sitting there empty. It's for emergencies. It's for civil unrest.
So it's like the National Guard?
But it's not the National Guard.
It's a super guard.
It's a super guard.
When did it start?
August. They say it was for September 11th, but it was actually put into place this last August.
So you're saying that we had trouble recruiting for a while for the military, but you're saying we didn't have any trouble forming this force, and who pays for it?
The United States government. You do. Your tax dollars are going to pay for it.
I know.
It's against the Constitution.
They can accomplish what you might be thinking about setting up camps, and they don't necessarily have to have legislation, to do the things that we dread. But it's something that's certainly deserves a lot of attention.
Right, and I want to make it very clear. I'm not fearing these things are happening. I want to set the record straight because we've got to know what we can believe.
Thank you. And Eid Shoma Mubarak.
Give up the ghost, give up the dream.